Clifford, and as another musician that I done a podcast with, and we were talking about like bad experiences at gigs. Please feel free to tell us a couple if you've got some good ones.
Well, I think there was one, and it was a lady who'd through David Curry had asked us to play, and I can't remember, it was up the loch somewhere, but like Helensburgh side. It might have been Gaelic Head. It might have been, right, and to be fair, I couldn't be arsed because I was driving the van that night.
Right, designated driver.
Aye, so you know that way you're just kind of in a mood.
Aye.
For the word go. So the crowd were kind of wanting, like one of these pubs where folk tell you what to play. They're maybe no digging you singing Bowie.
Aye,
at the
so
top of your voice.
they tell you what they want to hear.
Mate, you want to hear that, you do this, do that. And we just didn't hit it off. They didn't really like me from the start. I didn't really like them, and it wasn't going to get any better. So there was a few of them, but no many. Generally, when we played like the hometown, everybody came out in their hordes and done their support. But I was just thinking there, that's the difference between this kind of moving it up a level where you're playing like in a tribute band. It's you're going to an audience that you don't know. I know they know the tunes.
Aye.
But personally, you've obviously still got to play the part.
Aye, and you've got to prove yourself. You've got to live up to the expectations a bit, which is high stress, totally, man. Like,
puts another dimension on it, because folk are going to judge you, if they're fans. I've done it myself. I've went to, it was like the Bowie Experience. I can't remember the actual band's name. And I'm like, right, I've sang Bowie, I've been a Bowie fan for years, and I'm going to have to be really good to impress me.
Here. Aye, totally, man, totally.
And I think 3 songs in, I was singing right down the front, just like right into it. And the thing about these gigs as well, I was at the Smiths Limited last night up in Broadcast, because I've been gigging with the guys, so I know them. Don't know them well, but they were coming up to Scotland. They're from Manchester. So I was like, I'm going to go in, say hello kind of thing and watch the gig. And I was watching every day, and see after I think like 3 songs and a few, the audience having their beers, they forget. They actually, they forget you're a tribute.
Aye, totally, man. I like the whole idea that it's no the band that's playing goes out the window because everybody's enjoying it so much. But I would say, mate, see if you're not a good tribute act, you'll not get that reaction, so that it'll come, people will not have that same experience, but if you are a good tribute act, then people get lost in it just the same way they get lost in the original music. I think the Pink Floyd, Aussie Pink Floyd is probably the best tribute act that I've seen. And I've seen them live the whole show. I haven't seen yous yet. I'm sure yous will be top of that list. But I've when I saw them, I was like, oh, like they're not messing about here. Do you know what I mean? Like the setup, the stage show, and that, it was like a Roger Waters gig now or a Pink Floyd gig in the past. It was like a serious affair, and I think you don't get away with that. You don't get that good reaction if you're not really good at being a cover band. You know what I mean? So no, that's good, mate. That's good. So what was the gap between Sid James' experience and then Born of Frustration? What was the gap there?
Well, excuse me. I did leave the Sid James Experience.
Yeah.
And it was because we were doing the same circuit at the time.
Aye.
Excuse me. And the guys, everybody's got their own lives.
Yeah.
It wasn't
That's
really...
ultimately, it always happens, doesn't it, with bands,
older guys in a band, like, can you do that gig? Can you, all this kind of thing. So getting a gig together was really quite a lot of work.
Yeah, totally.
And it was Jerry Deeney that did most of it.
Aye.
And if it wasn't for Jerry, it'd have probably ended a lot sooner.
Aye.
But I was kind of hoping maybe they would get another singer and carry on. But it never really happened. And then Tommy died, obviously.
Yeah.
And that kind of, knocked everything in the head for a wee. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, that's all right, mate. Just clear your throat. I can chop it out anyway.
Aye, so, and obviously when I was saying Tommy died, we had an excuse to do a few things, like charity gigs for Tommy and all that, and they were really nice, and then obviously I got asked to do this, and I say it was too good a chance.
Mate, it's like, especially like, I'm a big James fan like yourself, do you know what I mean? So like, see, the thing is, for me it's really hard to imagine, because I'm not like a front man, do you know what I mean? I'm not very good at being like dancing and stage and engaging the audience. And I love music and I love to play and sing for people, but it's like I'm not as good at the frontman antics, right? You know, actually I've got my big mate Gavin as the lead singer in our band now, because it's so vitally important that somebody is good at that. And when you think of Tim Booth was like he was. It's like up Freddie Mercury kind of levels of frontman energy. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think, mate, like to be able to step into that as well is fucking a fucking accomplishment. Do you know what I mean? Like that's cool, man. Especially after a few years out and that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like picked up by around the campfire and that. That's a fucking great story, mate. A great story.
But I mean, the first gig it was one of them sink or swim. The first gig I done with them, I had 2 rehearsals, and it was Spike Island, The Resurrection. And that was from the Stone Roses that played there.
That was one of the early gigs back. So a wee bit far away for that bike there. That was one of the early gigs back after the pandemic, wasn't it? If I remember right,
it was 5 days after
stuff was allowed.
Britain or England had opened up.
Right, wow, man, and crazy.
When you got there and they showed us the stage and it was the empty field, and I was like, oh shit.
Oh no, it felt like a blade of grass in that field a bit from that.
And I thought, right, this isn't going to be good. You know, how's this going to go? But then, when we walked out onto the stage and it had filled up, it was just like a euphoric moment. You're like that, right, I've got to go for this. There was a bit of fear.
Yeah, it was like, totally.
So just, went and done my stuff, totally went for it, sort of, really kind of over the top, because you're like, it's the one chance.
You would have to be, but as well, like to be doing that kind of.
I mean, it was 14,000 people, and it was just mind blowing.
That's a huge gig, Paul, man. That's amazing, man. Like that was your first one back to you after a hiatus. Do you know what I mean? Wow, man. That's I'm sure it left you in good stead moving forward. You know what I mean?
It scarred me. You know what I mean? It really has. It was, you expect. I think it was fantastic, and what an opening gig. But every other one, is different and on a totally different scale.
Yeah,
totally. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're getting booked for, I think we're missing the one this year, but we're booked for one next year, which is on a similar kind of level.
That's brilliant, man. That's great news. Do you know what's the name of that festival?
I don't know, because they change the name every year. Every year, I can't remember what it's called this year.
Oh, they change the name every year, really?
Yeah, but it's round about Manchester area.
Right.
So, Widnes, St Helens, that kind of thing.
Aye. No, that sounds excellent. I mean, it's something to look forward to as well. But to come back, I can't get over that size of the crowd to come back after a gap. You know what I mean? And like, especially the pandemic as well. When I went back to doing pub gigs after the pandemic, I was like, all over the place at first again.
I know.
Never mind that now. No, that's great, man. That's great news. I'm glad it's going well, and I think it's good for good energy, good to be moving forward into something like that. You know what I mean? How would you say music has helped you?
That's a hard one, Paul.
Sometimes it's an easy question on the outset, but when you have to like answer it honestly, you have to kind of be personal and honest. And sometimes that's maybe isn't a great question when but I think it is, because it makes you have to think about the answer. Like. It's like you could probably do a 3-hour podcast talking about that one question alone if you.
I know. I'm thinking you're like that. Oh God.